for being here, and I hope you all had a fantastic week. It's been really exciting to finally be together in person. We actually never get to do this. We usually hold these meetings on a monthly basis, virtually, so being together in person is always something we should always make the most of. So we want to use this opportunity to learn from each other, right? And learn from you, assess what is working, assess what is not working. Well, basically learn from what isn't working. And we also just want to see how you can have a look at what is coming up in terms of the GEM programs and how you can leverage those programs to grow your communities as well. So thank you for being in this session. And yeah, let's make the most of it.
Great. Thanks. You want me to go?
Yeah.
Do we have a mic? I can stand up.
We have one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, so I wanted to kick it off, first of all, by saying thank you to Pretty, who does a wonderful job at coordinating this community. But just to emphasize a few things that's going on at Gen Global's level associated with what we're looking to do going forward with Startup Huddle. I think the most important thing to emphasize is that Startup Huddle is not the only type of model we have for doing ecosystem building, community building, and so when we talk to you about Huddle, it's not that we're suggesting this is the only way to do it. This is one tool that we think you can be using in doing that. And as such, we do have an opportunity to have a Gen. You can convene something called a Gen meetup anytime you want, and you can do it under the Gen brand. You can do it in any way, shape, or form you want. And we encourage that because you can just use the compass itself, being round in a sense of us coming together and listening, learning. You can also, you can do that at any time. With Startup Huddle, we want to try to remain as true to the US 1 million cups model that this was born from. And do we have any 1MC people here, by the way? I don't. I know that we got one. Great, thank you. And one of the things that you'll notice that Pretty's talked about is, from our perspective, we do want to make sure that this is not an event. Startup Huddle is not an event. Never use the word event. It is a meetup. And as we've always said from the beginning of the inception of 1 Million Cups, and by the way, both kind of founders of 1 Million Cups were here with Tom Roof from Kaufman is here, Cameron Cushman. So the people that conceived of this model are here. Many of the people like Kim and others who've sort of built and created this. One of the things we think is really important is to go back to the nice analogies that they used in the United States when the concept was launched. Namely, think of this as a church. Think of this as going to church for entrepreneurs. Or for the ones that like to have a little bit an alternative viewpoint, if you don't go to church, think of it as Alcoholics Anonymous for entrepreneurs. And I know you've heard us say that before, but I want to come back and underscore that because I'm not sure what's next door. Oh, no bad ideas. Okay. So I did want to stress that, and by the way, we'll make sure that you've got access to the no bad ideas because some of you I know wanted to be in both places, so that's good. But I want to emphasize that because what you're not supposed to be doing is organizing it independently each time you do it. And some people get into that routine because that's the way we often think about events. Oh, we're going to have an event, means I got to send out invitations, I got to work out how I'm going to do it, da-da-da. I'm exhausted already. It's a thing to put on an event, okay? Whereas if you say, I get together and I have a cup of coffee with my friends every Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock, and we just get together and have coffee, that's not an event, is it? It's a meetup. It's just a routine thing you do. Sometimes you go, sometimes you don't. But, we just have a tradition that we do that. It's in that spirit that we did it because we recognize that Startup Huddle organizers are very, very big. They're very busy. So this is one of many things that you do. And so for us, and you'll notice that this is quite clear, I think, in some of the guidance that Pretty's given you, where we're starting to limit Startup Huddle and to emphasize it to people that want to follow the model, while at the same time giving you 25 other ways. If your mission says, I want to do other things, everything from GW to No Bad Ideas to Gen Meetups to I can give you about a dozen other things that we got available through our partners. So, but we want you to think of this for its rather unique thing, and that's namely, you have to have a consistent place you do it, and you have to have a steady drumbeat, consistent time that you do it, and frequency. So some of you I know have said, I can't really get enough presenters, or I can't really do this more than once a month. That's okay. In the United States, it's once a week. Is it every Wednesday at 8 o'clock? If you don't do Wednesday at 8 o'clock, you can't have a startup, you can't have a 1MC license, correct? I mean, that's the rule. We won't let you talk about it. But the point is, with Startup Huddle, we've got some chapters that are making a little bit more of a meal of this than you need to make of it, because you're saying, well, I need to raise money, I need to do this stuff, I gotta send out invitations. The idea is you're supposed to be building a little mini community, a community of people, and they don't have to be entrepreneurs, they don't have to be ecosystem leaders, but people in the community that say, I like to show up at this time, and that's why it's called 1 Million Cups in the United States. I like to have a cup of coffee. I like to sit down with some other members of the community, and then some poor soul stands up and pours their heart out about the challenges they're having to do a business. And it's great because I get to help one entrepreneur. I get to go away that week saying I helped someone in our community. But I also, by the way, got to see several of my friends who I didn't have to organize meetings with. I didn't know so-and-so was coming this week. That was great. So I very much want to emphasize that character, what we're trying to get going with Startup Huddle. You guys started, I think, in a pub? No. And then you went to the library in Oxford?
Maybe we signed up for it in a pub, I'm not sure. Our first one was in June of 22 in a library.
In a library, okay. But you always have it in the same place, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And do you do it the same frequency? What's the frequency? He'll turn it on.
Yeah, so we run ours on the third Thursday of every month, same location within the library, and we go to the pub after the.
Okay.
That's where the pub part's coming in. Yeah.
So we should have called this 1 Million Pints. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there's probably been that drunk hours after the event. Yeah, we're probably there. Yeah.
Ryan, that's wonderful. But you get the concept here, the third Thursday of every month. If you think that you have to spend money on finding a location to host this, come and see me, okay? You don't have to do this. I am inundated with people saying, yeah, we have this shared workspace, we have this thing. I mean, even some of the guys like WeWork and stuff, they say, and now hotels are doing this in the United States all over there, saying, we're trying to turn our banks are doing it, hotels and banks, they're turning their lobby areas into meeting spaces, and we've done these, for example, in Saudi Arabia, where I've seen them actually convert them. In the banks, as you know, they're taking away the tellers. You go into the bank, you might sit at a desk with someone perhaps, or at a stool, but ultimately it's about the free espresso coffee. You ever been to a Capital One lounge? I mean, they're all like that, merging that. No more tellers. Okay, so the point is, I can go on and on and on. If you haven't got free space in your community, we need to talk, because there are people that would like you to bring the energy to their space. And so that's one thing I would say. If you feel like I have to invite people every time I do this, do you do an invitation every time you do it, or do you just do to new people, or a reminder or something?
So ours is active on Eventbrite, so people can sign up via that route, so they get the reminder as soon as we post the next event, immediately after the evening. Yeah, and in terms of the communication, no, not event. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, well corrected.
The next meetup.
Yeah, meetup.
Gathering.
And then the communications following the meetup. Always detail the information of what's coming up and what they should expect to receive over the following weeks. So there's constant communication.
Constant communication, right. And I know a couple of others do this through WhatsApp groups, but what I'm trying to get away from is thinking about it as a separate event. And of course you can use the word event, it is an event, but I'm just saying it should. But do you think of going to church on Sundays as an event? No. I don't know what words you use in your languages and cultures. It doesn't really matter. I'm sort of being a little facetious about I'm just trying to get away from the fact that it's a standalone thing. Don't make it a one-time standalone, because then all of a sudden it becomes a really big effort to build it, because you've got to almost think about, well, I'm starting from scratch every single time. Whereas you're really more building a listserv, you're building a community, you're just like you would, and maybe supporting the growth of that through the same things you do to build any kind of community, the things we all do through our social media, through our Instagram and WhatsApp groups, and through our so forth. So I'm hoping that that's one thing that I really wanted to emphasize. And the places you can find the communities are the same places that Jen is doing it in other ways. So the connection to Global Entrepreneurship Week is we love this for many reasons, but one reason we love Startup Huddle is that we hope that community that does Startup Huddle throughout the week, throughout the year, is going to be interested in, oh, by the way, we have another thing. It's connected in the Gen Compass family. It's called Global Entrepreneurship Week. It was actually born here in the UK, and it's not that you have to do startup huddles during the week. That's not, if you want, fine. But it's the fact those community can be told, by the way, there's something else. It's a sister program. Get involved in Global Entrepreneurship Week. So, there are other ways, and as a result, everything we do for GW should be feeding into your Startup Huddle chapters. Now, look, I know between you and Mark and, so many of the other actors here from the UK, you're pretty good communicators about making sure that, you're communicating, among each other. But I do want to stress, as Pretty said, that's one of the things that we do want to stress here, that you should leverage your other organizations and other Gen activities and Gen partner activities in your country. And making sure you know who those are, you can contact there is a Gen Global point of contact for every country. And their job is to make sure they know everything's going on at Gen. We have a very real-time, we're very good with our CRMs and our data, and by the way, our CRM is integrated with the back end of our website. So it doesn't matter if you change something on your website, change it on our CRM and vice versa. But as importantly, we have very good clarity as to what programs are active and what aren't in each country. You can ask us on a countrywide basis what's happening. It's rather like I used to have a book called The Dictionary of Dates and Events, and I'll never forget it as a kid. I love this book because I went to school, and in school I went to history, and I learned about this timeline of history, and you went all this stuff in history. And then I was a musician, so I loved music, and I knew all my musicians from Palestrina all the way up to Shostakovich. But everything to me was a horizontal thing based upon the field, in science. I could tell you, when did we pasteurize milk all the way up to whatever. But I never thought about it the year. And if you ever done this, you look at it and you say, hey, look at all the things that happened in 1756, okay? Mozart passed away, and we can go down. What happened in science? What happened in geography? What happened in, history, et cetera, et cetera. It's amazing. I had no idea these things had any connection to each other, but actually they all happened at the same time. So I think the same's true with what we're trying to emphasize here to do with this is make sure you're looking at it from a different angle of how all these pieces fit together. Those are some of the things that I think I wanted to stress. I do want to, I think this should be a discussion hearing from you about what's working and what's not working, and how we can support your effort. I do want to encourage you all. There are many startup community programs that have been very successful at raising money. I know some of you are looking to raise a little bit of money. I think that's great. We hope that that money is going to pay yourself to do this. I want to hear what kind of expenses you think you have, because we're very good at Gen at getting lots of people to contribute a tiny little bit or provide in kind a tiny little bit. And I'm hoping that can sustain the growth of what you're trying to do with Startup Huddle. I think that's really all I wanted to emphasize. I want to leave the rest of the time for discussion. So, but before I turn the mic back over, any immediate reactions to what I've said, especially the part of this where I'm very keen to emphasize the fact that we're not actually going to do any more Startup Huddle chapters unless you've shown us that you have a location where someone says, yeah, you can hold your Startup Huddle here every week. And it's someone that's not charging you to do it. Well, I don't care if they're charging you or not, but the point is, you shouldn't, I'm just telling you, you shouldn't be having to do it. There's got to be people in the community that recognize that this is a great community builder for them, because they have a local hub, a local workspace in the community, and this is a program that they'd like to have there. And by the way, it goes without saying, it's a two-way street. You hold it there, you're going to pick up people from their community, and of course, you're going to be able to give them, community. And by the way, libraries is a great idea. I don't know how this works. Kaufman has a partnership with the U.S. National Libraries Association. I've always worked out, what are they actually doing together? But I used to often thought 1 million cups would be great. And I went to their meeting and I said, do you know 1 million cups? None of them had heard of it, didn't know anything about it. And I'm like, well, you have public libraries, which, and Ryan, if you don't know Ryan, this is what he does in Oxford in the UK. And so I think it'd be good to share that experience, about why you're in a library and whether that, works. But there's a lot of other public community spaces and private ones, whether it be, as I said, accelerators and workspaces. So just generally first, reactions to what I've said, positive and negative, if anybody wants to push back on anything.
Not pushing back.
Oh, well, I like to welcome it so people feel comfortable.
All right. Just to say that you have...
Do you know each other, by the way, to make sure everybody should know you?
Cheryl from Jamaica. Thank you. So we have 2 Startup Huddle chapters in Jamaica. So started Startup Huddle Kingston. And that was the dream of my board chair. We must do Startup Huddle. So even if I didn't want to, because he always have my back, I had to do it, right? Pretty, you understand. So we got space from the hub co-working. They just moved into a new facility where they have 3 floors. So it was good for them as advertising, because people didn't know where they were, and it's good for their community as well. So we do a flyer every time to say sponsors, Gen Jamaica, Hub Co-working, and the Gen Global Entrepreneurship Network. Just doing the event, the Young Entrepreneurs Association, we want to be in on this. While I'm here at this conference, a partner said, I want my company's name stamped all over Startup Huddle. So some things will work, some things won't work. The challenge I have with Startup Huddle is the persons who want to do it complain that the questions that they're asked when they're creating a profile are too much. That's one. Secondly, when they put their information in, we are not able to see it unless Pretty sends it to us. I'm a girl, I like direct access. I don't know if anybody does. So I'd like to be able, just like when I sign in with my Gen Global profile, I can see all the people who are in my community that have created a profile on Gen. Sometimes it's a little bit faster because Pretty has 100 countries dealing with.
Well,
right?
Is that true? She can.
Yeah. So she.
I don't think. Yeah, maybe your mic's. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
So
yours on.
the organizers are not able to access who applies or who is in their community. It only comes to me. So perhaps it's a back end tweak that we need to do so that when it sends to me, it can also send to.
Yeah, and I don't know whether that's deliberate, but let's talk to Ashley and Mark about that.
Yeah.
But can we make a note of that while we're here? Let's ask them that. There could be a privacy issue. Now, look, you're the managing director of Gen Jamaica, so I know you can get access to the database for Gen in Jamaica, okay? But it could be that a local organizer is not given access to the whole community. We'll find out what that is, but that's a good point.
So that's basically what is happening. So we also
So
have
one thing is you'd like more direct access to
more
data. What was the first one?
Questions.
They have to create a profile.
Oh, right.
But there are so many questions, so they don't understand until they get there. Sometimes it's just by us sharing on Instagram or wherever they
Right.
saw this and figure that we want to be doing this.
Okay.
So they don't understand why they had to go through and create
Yeah.
a profile.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
Because the same's true with the GEC. If you sign up for the GEC,
No,
we're going to
I
ask.
have no problem with that.
Oh, no. I'm just saying, the thing is, we're trying to make sure that they feel welcome into the Gen Network. The first time they join the Gen Network, we're going to ask them not very many compulsory questions, required questions, but we're going to ask them for more information about themselves. We're doing that. We don't sell data. We're a nonprofit organization. We're highly protective of that data. That's why I say maybe there's reasons why it's not accessible to some people because of GDPR reasons. But the point is, we are keen to make sure that we know more about the person so we can communicate relevant information to them. And so hopefully if you talk to people and they're like, why do I have to create a profile? You tell them, look, it's like many things in life. You do it once and now you have your own portal. And by the way, that gives you access to an incredible network, okay? I didn't get a chance to play the video today, and I don't think it's in this room, but we've got a whole video presentation around the new Gen Connect tools. So this gives you an opportunity to opt into Mentor Connect, Investor Connect, Founder Connect, Ecosystem Connect, the Speakers Bureau, all of those areas. And you don't have to use the platform to talk to each other. You can go and talk to each other offline, but it allows you to see who it is, who's endorsed by Gen, etc. So I hear you, and I hear you're not telling me you mind that, but helping you to translate to people about why you say, by the way, if you join our community, the first time we just want to know a few things about you. That's not something you have to do every single time you become involved in something we do.
And just wanted to share one thing that I've done. The books by, what's the lady's name again? That were going, Cardale. What's the book again? That were being signed by the lady and given out for free. I took up 3 copies. Time to whatever. I took up 3 copies and I gave them to one of the delegates here to ask them to take back for me, because when we have Startup Huddle, I'm going to give it 1 each to the 2 entrepreneurs who present. So something that they get. I mean, we don't have for all Startup Huddles, but that's something I did just now.
Speaking about books, did you all pick up impact reports? Yeah. You did? Okay, if you didn't get them and you want to take a couple more to give to board members or stakeholders, whatever, just ask for them. So I know most people do things electronically, but every now and again it's nice to have a hard copy. Okay, other comments? Ryan, were you going to say something?
Just to the points that were spoken there. Sorry, everyone. Ryan from Startup Huddle, Oxford. I think there's a legacy to people presenting at Startup Huddle where they carry it with pride and they say, my journey started at that event and that's where I really expanded and grew my network, found my community. And I just wonder if there's an opportunity, a bit like we've received these fantastic pins, but whether there's something that we can give to the presenters, as you're doing with the books, that would solidify their having been a part of the Startup Huddle community, the journey, and would enable them to also go away and be advocates for us, everything that they've received from having presented and been a part of it. 3 years in now with our Huddle, we've got all these fantastic success stories, case studies. They're going off to partner events and they're attributing their success or the start of their journey being the Startup Huddle. So I just wonder if there's a better way that we can kind of capture and recognize that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, by the way, since they're heavy to ship, if you guys want extra pins, go to the Gen desk. I think they're for sale, but I think they're inexpensive or whatever. But if you want to get a big bag of pins, I think we're selling pins if you haven't got them. But that's a nice thing you can do, is give them a pin. I mean, we use them all the time for that purpose. It's a good suggestion. We should think about if there's something else we want to give presenters. Now, he should really be in this room, and I'm sorry this session got scheduled at the same time as the one next door because he's doing one on No Bad Ideas. But Steven Rodriguez is our director for founders. Okay, and it's very important because we've got someone in charge of all of our founders, someone in charge of all of our investors. Alejandro Molina is in charge of investors out of New York. Steven's in charge of founders out of Washington, D.C. And what we want to do for them is we want to say, by the way, we've got actually 50 things we can do. When you presented for Startup Huddle, we know who you are. We've got your presentation. Or at a minimum, we've got Ryan's endorsement. As far as we're concerned, they're a certified founder. There's somebody we know who they are. We can, with your permission, excuse me, we can send them all sorts of things. We have 700 founders here. I think we paid to fly in maybe 50 or 60 of them. Ones that we knew were doing amazing things. We wanted them to tell their story on the stage. There's just no way they could afford to do it. So, we do that. We of course put everybody through our Entrepreneurship World Cup. And for us, excuse me, that's the entry point into Gen. It's not about the startup competition, as some of you heard me say before lunch. It's about the fact that we know that forces you to upload your deck to us. Once you give us your deck, that begins the journey. We then get all of our eyes on that deck, and we work out what's happening, what's going to be, how can we help you at Gen? Which ones are going to be the ones that we can help excel? I got to tell you, there's at least 10 entrepreneurs that I wouldn't have found out if they hadn't learned about from EWC, that I've put in touch with the chairman of our board. There's people I've given to other members of our board, but we've got a whole group of very influential mentors, some of which are on our platform because they're happy to publicly be a certified mentor. Some of them aren't. Some people want to mentor, someone doesn't want to mentor. But the point is, I could go on and on and on with a long list of things that we want to do for our founders. But the most important thing is we want them to be recognized in the network. So that's one thing we'd love to do, is not just the sort of local public recognition of it, which I think is a great idea, but find ways that we can actually support them going forward. Well, that's a great idea.
Something else I'd like to add, sorry, before we move away from the why people should create a profile, especially the people presenting, the founders. I picked it up recently. I Googled my name. I have a website. I have social media platforms. My LinkedIn is quite popular. But when I searched for my name, the first thing that came up was my Gen profile. So for people who are new, who are in the ideation stages, early stages of their businesses, and they don't have an online presence yet, the Gen profile is a fantastic online presence for them. So that's something you can mention as an added benefit as to why they should create a profile.
Yeah. While we're on the website, is there anything we want to emphasize for the chapter leads to, I know we've got a few things that we're really keen. Sometimes if you don't tell us what's going on, we're trying to actually reduce the amount of things that we ask you to tell us so that you've got enough time to do it. And because a lot of the time we can't talk about the work you're doing if we don't know what you're doing. So do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, so just making sure that as often as, I know Ryan mentioned that he puts his events on Eventbrite. So I know that it might add a layer of admin for you, and Eventbrite does a bit of marketing for you, right? But the same day that you add your sessions to Eventbrite, do add them to the website as well, because the people in the area who visit our website will see that we've got some activity happening in Oxford and who are members of our community. So that's one of the reasons why. And another thing, so we used to have this form that we used to ask you to fill out after every session. But now we've reduced that from every session to just once a month. So if you host weekly sessions, then we're only just asking you to let us know how many sessions you hosted in that month and who presented. We used to ask you for more information on the entrepreneur, but because they had filled it in themselves when they completed the form to present, then we're not going to ask you for any of that. We're just going to ask you for their name, and then that's it. So once a month, just let us know how many sessions you hosted and who presented at those sessions, and we'll be able to link their name with the profile that they created, and that's pretty much it.
And we're helping you collect impact data that's going to help you raise money. How many of you, I asked this in the last session, how many of you went to the fundraising session on Monday? Okay, so on Monday, one of the workshops was around business model for Jen. How do you actually monetize it? How do you take it forward? We have a new person on our team out of New York called Natalie. She's been working with Alejandro on our team. And their insights have changed a lot of things for us. We got, 10 new foundations in the last few months that came to sign deals with us here at the GEC. And that's at us at Gen Global. So we're trying to walk the talk, figure out, what do we need to do to make the convincing case. But you all know this. Foundations or sponsors are always looking for you to be able to show impact. And so forcing yourself through the rigor of that once a month is going to help you build an impact case. But we're also going to tell those stories. So we'll help promote those people, give you a story to be able to tell a local sponsor about local, born locally individuals about how they're excelling on the global stage as a result of Startup Huddle. We want to help you build your case to be able to grow the value proposition. So go ahead. Any other comments before we? I know you wanted to put people to work, and if I could just say, any anxiety about the regular drumbeat thing, whether it's every week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, every month. Is everybody comfortable? All right. I'd love to hear a little bit from the 1MC perspective when you're ready. If there's anything you want to share in the context of, how long have you been with 1MC? 10 months. Okay. And a little bit about that experience.
Thank you. My name is Emma Moema. I am the program manager for 1 Million Cups in the United States. Currently, I oversee 112 communities. And I was just listening to what you do with Startup Huddle. And I would like to tell you about the 1MC and how it's structured. We have 3 pillars. And the 3 pillars are structured on presentations and not pitches. The reason why we say this is because the people who come to present at 1MC, they actually are who are starting businesses. So we want them to be vulnerable to their community, to talk about their business. The second pillar we have is we have presentations and not pitches. Because once you tell people pitches, you're saying you have someone in the audience who can give them money. And that is not the case. So for us, it's a legal issue. So we call it connections, presentations, and not pitches. And the third pillar is for the community, by the community. What does that mean? All the 112 communities in the country are led and organized by volunteers. Nobody is paid to do that. And each community has at least 7 to 10 organizers from the community. The reason why we say that is because we don't want it to be a heavy lift. If you're spending more than 3 or 4 hours a week organizing 1MC, you need to do something. You need to expand the organizer role. because you need to have shared responsibility. Someone who will be engaged in the community, helping to build the pipeline. Someone who is the MC on Wednesday morning. Someone who is sending out mail, because we provide a platform where you have a website for each community. So we have roles that we help the community to know how many organizers do you need, and how does that change how you organize and how your community is able to move forward. And that is why we say you meet every week. Now, we had to change the meeting time to accommodate different communities and their needs. So if your community can only meet at 7:30 so that by 9 you're done and you go to work, then we have allowed that. A lot of our communities meet from 9 to 10 o'clock. And that's it, every Wednesday morning. Because research has shown the cadence of meeting every week builds community. You're not coming to network, you're not giving out business cards. No, because you know it's just like church. Next week, same time, same place, you will be there. The other thing that we ask communities to do is to find a local sponsor for your venue and for your coffee. Why? Because it's for the community. So the sponsor is giving back to the community. So consider talking to the community and seeing who is able to sponsor the space. And then you recognize them every time you meet and say, this is our sponsor. And that goes a long way in how the community is able to mobilize itself. Now, of course, we have similar challenges in wanting to access more information about your followers in the community. But in America, we have a problem with giving personal information. So we do have the same policy. We have, even if you have 1,000 followers, you will be able to create the mailing list, but you will not get the mailing information for your followers. But that's simply a legal issue. So we don't do that. The other question that I had that we have similar issue would be creating profiles and having too many questions. That's similar to 1 million cups. Why? Because nobody wants to give you a lot of information. They think you're going to sell the data. But what we do is say, you know, this information is what you see in your dashboard for your community. So when they log in, you're able to see who is following your community. What is their demographic data? Who are you reaching and who is not being reached, right? So that you know how do you market to your community for them to come to be able to appreciate what the 1 million cups is doing. So when you think about how do you take the same information and just turn it around and let it be the benefit for the community. So that's how we are responding to the issues that are coming to us. We also give the dashboard that gives each community data for their community. You see the industry for the presenter, you see the demographic data, so you see whether they're male, female, whether they are the age group, and that is helpful because we are trying to look at sustainability. How do you sustain a community when you're not including people from the Gen Z, the younger community? So if they're not coming to your 1MC, to your communities, think about that. Who are you attracting and how can you make a difference? So in a nutshell, that is what we do for 1MC.
Catalina wants to say something?
Hi, everyone. I just quickly wanted to share a bit of how we've interacted with Startup Huddle back in Honduras. Honduras is a small country in Central America. And really, Startup Huddle has helped us model or teach community interaction. And what I mean by this is that since it's early stage entrepreneurs that go out, tell their story, and they're supposed to receive like this crowd feedback, culturally, we're not used to giving negative feedback to people in general. So usually our first events were really nice. Everybody was just congratulating the entrepreneur, telling them to go on and all this. And entrepreneurs were very happy. But this isn't what the event or the community building is for, right? We're there to help them and give this constructive criticism back and just help them like expand and have all these ideas that help them improve. So that is something that Startup Huddle has helped, because we have to teach the attendees that they can also give this constructive criticism and entrepreneurs to receive this criticism or ideas not as something negative. So this is something that has also we've been building with Startup Huddle. We don't do it on a weekly basis. We do it on a bi-monthly, if I'm not mistaken. We want to do it more often. We've gotten a new venue lately in universities. But yeah, that's been interesting from Startup Huddle, because we're not really used to having this type of events that really help people feel comfortable between them and just share openly and receive that feedback in a positive way and just like improve along the way, right? And still join the community continuously.
Well, this is golden, and I just want to make sure. Thank you for all of these thoughts, and I think I just want to say again, 1MC is the innovator that invented the model, and so we're still learning some of the great insights from you. So, from Jen's perspective, if the folks at 1MC are telling you we tried this didn't work, we really want to listen to them. And one idea we want to talk about, which the leadership of the Kauffman Foundation said I should come out because you're doing a 1MC meeting, is that right, in the summer? And I would love to come out if invited. But the point is, we'd love to look at ways where maybe the 1MC organizers that are interested in being mentors to others in other communities to say, hey, at least when they're getting started. So in the same way that people like Ryan do to others. So thanks. Other points. Oh, Mark, you were going to say something.
Hi. So I'm Mark, Gen UK, and we're very proud to have 4 startup huddles in the UK. So apart from Ryan, who you heard from earlier in Oxford, we also have another one here. And I'm going to come to you in a second. Also in Oldham and Manchester. And I think you made a very good point about universities as another place other than libraries to host it. And at Napier University in Edinburgh, Kendra is running one there. And I'll let you just describe that because that's a different experience as well, but also the fact that you've run the first female-only startup huddle.
Hello, I'm Kendra Byers and I run Startup Huddle Edinburgh. I'm also the National Director for Scotland for Gen UK. And I'm delighted to speak to any of you that have any questions. But I work within an institution, I work within the university, and we have so many spaces across the university. And we're quite lucky that our institution has a co-working space that's set up inside the city centre, away from feeling like part of the campus, so it sits on its own. So we use that. It's a 24/7 co-working space, so we have power of when we do things. And we just use that space, and actually, because we're supported by ecosystem partners, they pay for the coffee, they can sponsor the coffee, we actually sometimes, if we do it in the evening, we get pizza. So someone sponsors the pizza. We host it on a monthly basis, but we've changed it slightly because we have 2 different meetups running that are startup huddles now. Last year, we launched the first huddle for women and gender minorities. So there's one running each, like bi-monthly for that, and then it also is a general huddle. And one of them, the women and gender minority huddle, is actually a brunch. So we get some pastries, coffee, and we do that in the morning. But then the general huddle is actually monthly basis, same time, same place. And it's in the evening, and it works better. And yes, some people then go to the pub, they decide somewhere to go after it. So we find that works quite well, but it's always the same place. And now there's also conversations happening where universities locally in Scotland are saying, well, they can do it, so they'll do one in Glasgow, or I think there was a conversation for Dundee. So it's good to have that example and share how you're doing it. So yeah,
It's great. Do we use universities for 1MC here? Okay, universities, libraries, I assume startup hubs. Anything else?
We have collaborations with some universities. Right now, I'm speaking to one university to help with international students to build social capital before they graduate. So I'm designing programs for them so that when they graduate, they can have something that shows that they were involved in the community. Because in America, being involved in the community is very big for you to be able to get a job. And one of the universities found that was a challenge for them. We are also working with a lot of entrepreneurship schools of entrepreneurship in universities. They host some 1MC and they provide sponsorship for space. We also see a lot of accelerator programs where we are having sponsorships from accelerator programs. And then also we are working with Fast Track. Fast Track is an entrepreneurship program that now we are housing 1MC and Fast Track. So we train on entrepreneurship. And then now we're saying, if we're training you, come and practice to talk about your business at 1MC before you go and say, I'm looking for money, and you're pitching to people who know, what your business needs. So those are some of the things that we are doing to support. We are also working with the Hispanic Chamber, the National Hispanic Chamber, to see whether we can have that collaboration, and the Black Chamber as well.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
And that's wonderful to hear, because obviously, one of the things, again, that Gen Global has is networks in all of these spaces that usually have connections in your countries. So, for example, you'll notice that we have the Global Consortium of Entrepreneurship Centers that hosted the university's post-AI session today, if any of you were around for that. But they don't just have a lot of networks in the United States, and so there's a whole range of organizations. But I just want to stress, and I don't know whether this is part of your arguments in the United States, but one of the most wonderful things is when I go to them for stuff like this, they're like, we are hungry for content in our space, particularly universities, because there's so much going on, and this is so appealing for young people. If I could just say, we also did a Startup Huddle just for women for a number of months in Malawi, and I just want to share the story because it was beautiful. We were doing Startup Huddle. First of all, people had mixed it with pitch night, so we immediately redirected that. We're like, it's not pitching and it's less technical reasons outside the United States, and it's more, it's just more that it's a different model. And then we realized that the women in Malawi just were not coming and not confident, and so we actually had a Gen person on the ground there doing it. But what he did was he organized for 6 months Startup Huddle for just women. But over the first 3 months, it was just women. And then we started to invite a couple of other men, and slow over time. And then there was no need for a female-only huddle. That they were comfortable in themselves, confident. It became, in that particular community, there was a real sense of, I feel uncomfortable being in this, wider environment. And if nothing else, they had built their confidence, which of course has so many other ramifications and value beyond entrepreneurship. And so the lovely thing for me is that they said, we're happy to have, we'd like to be community-wide. They had felt like, we're ready actually now. We know, come on, we got it. And so, but I want to applaud you for the idea of doing particular groups that are struggling, because it's not just women. Obviously, it's many other historically underrepresented groups. So, thank you.
I have here. I'm Neus from Startup Huddle Barcelona. Nice to meet you, everyone. Related what you were saying that in Scotland you're doing like for women's. In Spain we see that sometimes entrepreneurs need to be in a community related in their industry. So since last year we are starting doing like sectorial startup huddles. So last week, well before arriving here, we have one related with industry. So there was two entrepreneurs that present their company. It was related with industry, basically mechanical industry or logistics. And we invite mentors and companies around the area to go as an audience and can give feedback related with the sector. And it's something that's really helpful, the entrepreneurs, but also the companies and the partners that are in this area, because they know another people. So it's a community for the entrepreneurs, but also for the people who's actively coming and giving feedback to. For the other hand, and about related with funding, we also start trying to work with city halls, because Startup Barcelona is the main city of our region, but there are a lot of small cities with a lot of ecosystems, and sometimes entrepreneurs are quite against that everything happens in Barcelona city. So for solve this kind of problem, we are working with city halls that are next to Barcelona, and we do startup huddles in their city halls inside there with all the community from each city. So it's really nice. Want to share anything you need? Will be a pleasure to explain again.
Who hasn't spoken that would like to share? Anybody else want to share?
Yeah.
And by the way,
okay.
the lights went off, but
We have to go on.
no, we're going to go and talk until they kick us out. I think they'll shut us down soon, but this is more important.
Don't worry, don't worry. Well, in Barranquilla, Colombia, we have the second chapter of Startup Huddle. The first one was in Bogota, running by Flor Liebano. This year we started a new chapter. It's just the beginning of that seeds that we are spreading all of the country and all of the cities, because we need to get this kind of strategy all around the country. One of the best practices we have in this moment is exactly the co-working in one university. We know that not always we report all the huddles we have, because firstly, 2 years ago, I said I'm going to do 3 months, be monthly, but when I get in just one place like this, neither me has to be in the place and the huddle is running alone. I know that there's no kind of like the methodology, but now in the founders we are getting that stress strategy, and they're running alone the huddles for that. In this case, for me to get spread all of the methodology of huddles around the country, we have here one of our N10, Reúne. In Colombia, we have one organization or association that has in this moment 70 universities that wants in this moment to run a chapter in each university that are related to each of the cities of Colombia. So if you get the exactly and correct stakeholder, maybe it's so easy to get a strategy like Startup Huddle explode into a country. So in this moment, for me, besides GEW, Startup Huddle has that importance in the way, because we want just to know how they are doing, the founders, not the pictures, and exactly in the same page that yours, but we want to in any way get all the programs together, because we are having founders and founders presenting each huddle, and maybe we want to guide that one that we know that have a potential to get into EWC. So we are planning some things I'm going to share in another place, but in this moment we want to get together in the strategies all around the country, just with one and 10 stakeholders, just one. Thank you.
That's wonderful. And just for some of the people in the room that don't know it, he's using actually an internal Gen 10 term called N10, which it's actually our national leadership and council. So in each country, we're forming that in each country, whether or not we have an office or an operation there. But thank you so much for that. And thank you for actually teeing up the one last thing I wanted to do. I know that we can resume our conversations in any open spaces. Of course, we have the hotel for the rest of the day too. But I want to be respectful for the amazing team. And by the way, while the camera's on me, I'm going to say you should all know that the production of this event is done by Publicis Live. They come all the way from Europe. As you know, it's the same team that puts together the World Economic Forum, Vivitech, various other things. They are the best in the world. So maybe we look at the camera and say, thank you, Publicis Live. Thank you, Publicis Live. Great job. I'm being nice to them because they've been nice to us, because I think we were supposed to close at 2 o'clock, and they've all got to pack up and get planes and equipment back and ship a bunch of stuff back to Europe. But anyway, thank you for doing this. But I wanted to have a chance to introduce Stephen. Stephen, as I mentioned, is in charge of our founders, and particularly Ryan raised the question. He's like, well, you know, I got all these presenters for Startup Huddle. And by the way, he used to be a Startup Huddle organizer, but actually he was a 1MC organizer in the United States. And used to be, and then he moved to Colombia, and his wife, who's here, was also a Startup Huddle organizer, so they have a lot of experience with this. But obviously, Stephen is focused on what do we do to make the journey of the people who come through our programs, our founders, how do we do that? And as I mentioned before, he's also in charge of the Entrepreneurship World Cup, which is the beginning of the journey, where we look at all of the founders and we say, how can we now help you further from this point onwards? And just as a reminder, we're a nonprofit organization. When I say how we're helping our founders, there's nothing we do that we ever charge people for. So I just want to stress that I really want to make sure that you knew who Stephen was, because he can provide all sorts of direction for the presenters. It doesn't matter what stage they're at. They can be pre-idea stage. They can be, I mean, we have idea stage, growth stage, and so on for the Entrepreneurship World Cup. But whether they're relevant for that, when they enter, that helps us begin their journey with us in multiple ways. And actually, you can also talk to Stephen, because maybe there's people that are not. How big's your network of founders now?
We're close to, well, 260,000 going on to 300,000.
Okay. So I have to believe that some of those are in your communities, and to the extent that you're interested in saying, hey, you're interested in coming to talk to the community, be part of be more active in your community, come to a Startup Huddle chapter meeting, and we would love to have you talk about your company. So I do want to make sure you make that connection, because, Ryan, you raised a very important point. We build community. As I like to say, building community one entrepreneur at a time. I think, which I think came from 1MC. That was the language, but I really think it's powerful to make sure that we're acting and on that journey for them going forward. And if I might also say, we would love any 1MC presenters are also welcome to join the Entrepreneurship World Cup. I mean, we had the finals here for the U.S. community. We had 10 finalists, but we're the United States, while 1MC is separate to Startup Huddle, and we're all part of the same family. We're all about building community, and certainly anybody that comes out of the 1MC programs would be thrilled if they're interested in taking advantage, because some of them are interested in making connections, outside of their own communities. So. Before we wrap up, I just want to once again say thank you so much for all you do. Pretty is here to make sure that she's your channel to other parts of Gen. But most importantly, thanks for allowing us to be as rigorous as we can. We're not going to force you to do it at 8 o'clock every Wednesday morning, much as though I would love to do that. That is actually my dream. My dream was that eventually we get enough traction that all of a sudden the entire world says, we love this idea, and we do it always at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday morning. So anybody that wants to make that dream happy, know that right now it's nothing more than a dream, but it would be fantastic. But I do, because I think it's a very powerful thing, no matter what time zone you're on, if that becomes something that happens all over the world, you know. So I think, all right, okay, the ship is sinking. All right, so we'll, but I do want to, if we've only got 10 minutes, we'll take, even if we've only got 10 seconds, I'd never like to end without asking if there's anybody in the room that feels they didn't have something, that they had something they didn't get an opportunity to say. So we have microphones. Anybody else want to add anything? Okay. Nobuntu, thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Nobuntu Tintelo from South Africa. I had a startup Huddle Lusigisi, but I just feel like there is a rural community that we haven't really touched on. I deal a lot with rural communities. So I have to go to a point whereby if I introduce Jen, I have to create profiles for them. There is no internet in some areas, but people are running their own businesses. So I have to go down from Pretoria and find a place where we can get an internet for them, and I can help them register their profiles. It was hard in the beginning, especially with the questions like we just explained now. But recently I saw, at first when you were registering, it had to send an email and then you had to create a password. But now I can see you can just create a profile and have a password on the first page, which I think, yeah, that one really helped to reduce the process. But now there is another part in the registration where it has to prove that you're not a robot, that a lot of people struggle with, even if they are not in the rural communities, they just get stuck there. I always have to help out. So I just felt like there is the community that we should also consider when we doing all these things behind the scenes. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, this is golden. Is this not about how do you increase access? And we always talk about it in big terms, but bless you, because you've given us very specific terms. Very, very, very helpful. And we do do our best to listen to all the users. If you're going to the party tonight, I hope we will all, at Jen, Pretty, and Stephen, let's make an effort to connect people to Ashley, because she is our customer service for you for the website. She's always interested to hear any user feedback. And by the way, just for what it's worth, we're all complaining about that thing where you have to click pictures and say that you're real. There's got to be better versions of that. I think they're finding that and finding a more up-to-date version for doing that. But thank you for that. And anything we can do to make it easier. I think, fortunately, you have a good friend in Pretty that understands what it's like to do anything in communities that just don't have access to this kind of technology. But I want to say thank you for helping them by doing all that extra effort. So that's fantastic. We don't have that problem in rural Kansas, do we? We do? Oh my gosh. All right. Mark, you want to last
Very quick, and I know there's only seconds remaining, but one to suggest all the fantastic communities you've got worldwide. There's an opportunity during Global Entrepreneurship Week to come together or bring your communities together to have Zoom sessions on a kind of contrast and compare entrepreneurship in your country versus my country, or my city versus my town. And I was then finally going to say, if everybody ran on the stage, I'll take a picture of you all.
Oh, wonderful. That's been great. But as you're coming up, as you're coming up to the stage, as Startup Huddle organizers, how many of you have a Jen t-shirt? Anybody not have a Jen t-shirt? Well, they're very scarce this year. Anybody heard me in the earlier session? So, but I'm going to try to make sure we get them for all the chapter organizers. So thank you.